In Brazil, citizens hold commemorative acts for peace and justice in different cities 1 week after the murder of Marcelo Arruda. Thousands of workers at Germany's major container ports went on strike for 48 hours. The U.S. continues to plunder Syrian oil. On Saturday, a convoy of 40 vehicles carrying Syrian crude oil was reported to have moved to Iraq. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with news. In Brazil, citizens hold commemorative acts for peace and justice in different cities 1 week after the murder of Marcelo Arruda by a supporter of President Jair Bolsonaro. Organized by the Workers' Party, the acts are held in Foz do Iguaçu, Porto Alegre, and other cities of the country with the presence of family and friends of Marcelo Arruda. The tributes are made with a plural, non-partisan character, so it welcomes all the people and organizations that are in favor of peace and demand justice for Marcelo. Arruda, who was leader of the Workers' Party and trade unionist from Iguaçu, lost his life on Saturday, July 9th, after being shot by federal prison officer Jorge José da Rocha Guaranho, a Bolsonaro supporter. The tragedy occurred in the city of Foz do Iguaçu, Western Paraná. Arruda was celebrating his 50th birthday when he was killed. In Chile, citizens denounced the militarization of the southern macro zone of the country after the arrival of more military vehicles this Saturday. According to local media, around 25 military vehicles arrived this Saturday morning to the so-called southern macro zone in the middle of the constitutional state of emergency the government enforces. The vehicles arrived specifically at Wallmapu, a Mapuche territory, then passed through the town of Cholchol and advanced to Galvarino, where there is Mapuche territorial recuperation against the businessman Juan Sutil, president of the Corporation of Production and Commerce. This is part of a decades-long conflict between the Mapuche indigenous people and the state and forestry business groups in the south of Chile. The Panamanian government and one of the two main social forces leading the Panamanian protests, the National Alliance for the Rights of the People, have reached a pre-agreement at the table installed in Santiago de Veraguas. The agreement relates to the freezing of the price of fuel at 3.32 USD per gallon. This agreement marks the first progress made in the dialogue, which is now focused on the following 2 points: the food basket and the price of medicines. However, Luis Sanchez, secretary of the Veragüense Teachers Union, said that although the price freeze was agreed upon, the negotiating organizations have not signed anything until a consensus is reached on the other pending issues. Meanwhile, this Sunday, the demonstrations are expected to continue in several areas of the country until Monday.
We have made good progress on the first point. There is a number we agreed on, 3.32 United States dollars per gallon, but we haven't signed any document on it until other pending issues are addressed. At present, there is a high-level commission set up to discuss the basic basket, to which we will be submitting a series of points aimed at making foodstuff accessible to the Panamanian people. We are requesting a price freeze that does not hurt the interests of producers. That is why we have requested today the presence of the Minister of Agricultural Development. Tomorrow, we will also set up a negotiating table to discuss the issue of medicines.
Meanwhile, the People's Alliance for Life, which brings together more than 70 organizations from all over the country, and it is the other large bloc that coordinates the measures of force throughout the country, withdrew its initiative to form a unified bloc with ANADEPO for not having been considered to take part in the dialogue and because it carries out a policy that fragments popular unity.
The United for Life People's Alliance has decided not to go to Santiago de Veragua because the national government and ANADEPO already reached agreement on fuel and on the food issue. And tomorrow they will be discussing public health. We do not acknowledge such agreements because there are other organizations that are fighting, such as the People's Alliance for Life, the noble people in resistance, and the communities in struggle, and because those agreements do not reflect the true feeling of the Panamanian people nor their true needs. Therefore, we have decided to continue with the measures of struggle and to paralyze the country.
In response to the armed violence in Haiti, the United Nations Security Council unanimously approved by a resolution banning arms exports to the country. The document urges member states to prevent the export of small arms and light weapons as well as ammunition to non-state actors involved in gun violence. The measure in turn encourages cooperation in preventing and combating illegal trafficking. In this regard, the Security Council called for an immediate end to gun violence in the Caribbean nation. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Thousands of workers at Germany's major container ports went on strike for 48 hours. German North Sea ports have been on their longest strike in 40 years. Thousands of strikers gathered for the central demonstration in Hamburg. The Verdat-DI union is negotiating with the Central Association of German Seaports Operators for an increase in wages for the 12,000 employees at the Hamburg, Bremen, Bremerhaven, Brake, and Wilhelmshaven sites. Verdat-DI is demanding an inflation adjustment of currently around 7.8%, a salary increase of 1.20 euros per hour, and further supplements depending on the area of work for 1 year. This corresponds to a demand for up to 14% more pay. The CDS wants to offer 12% more, but with a contract term of 24 months. The union rejects the offer because the workers themselves would have to bear the risk of inflation in the second year. German authorities announced that without new imports from Russia, the country's gas reserves are insufficient for the upcoming winter. This Sunday, during an interview, the director of the German Regulatory Office for the Electricity, Gas, Telecommunication, Post and Railroads Markets, Klaus Müller, warned that gas deposits in the European nation are only at 65% of their capacity, a level that is not enough to get through the winter. Müller explained that the low levels are due to the temporary suspension of the operation of the Russian gas pipeline Nord Stream 1 for maintenance work. Michael Huther, director of the German Economic Institute, warned that the European Union's refusal to allow Russian gas imports could have negative consequences for European companies and consumers. In Ukraine, command officers of the army of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic report 257 deaths due to Kiev shellings in the Donbas region over the past few months. According to the authorities of the self-proclaimed republic, the Ukrainian army has attacked Donetsk territory with over 50,000 shells during the last 5 months. Donetsk authorities say that during the last 151 days of fighting in the Donbas region, the Ukrainian forces registered 6,377 shellings and 5,708 shots with heavy weapons. Donetsk leaders said that besides the 257 fatalities, there have been 2,699 people wounded. Kyiv could use U.S. supply missiles to attack Crimea, a spokesman for the General Intelligence Directorate of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, Vadim Skibitsky, warned. Skibitsky was asked by journalists during a television program whether Ukrainian forces could use HIMARS long-range multiple rockets launcher systems to attack facilities in Crimea, and Skibitsky gave an affirmative answer. Both weapon systems were delivered by the United States on condition that they would not be used against Russian territory. Because of situations like this, Moscow has warned that NATO countries are playing with fire by supplying weapons to Ukraine. In France, forest fires destroyed 10,000 hectares of land in the southwestern department of Gironde, while 38 other departments remain on alert due to the persistent heatwave. The agency Meteo France warned that temperatures could reach 40 degrees Celsius on Monday. It's expected to be the hottest day ever recorded on French soil. According to forecasts, could be left behind the records of 29.4 degrees Celsius left on August 5th, 2003 and July 25th, 2019, so very few departments would report less than 30 degrees. High temperatures trigger a series of forest fires. Over 1,000 firefighters and volunteers remain on Sunday for the sixth consecutive day in the work to extinguish the flames. These amid difficulties before the arrival of the peak of the heat wave that hits the country, with the west and south as the territories most affected by high temperatures.
We are reinforced this morning. A squadron of mobile police arrived, about 40 gendarmes, who will be on duty all day and who will help us both to be positioned at roadblocks, as roads had to be closed, and also to be able to secure all the sites that have been evacuated.
Tropical storm Stell, forming Pacific Ocean waters, became a Category 1 hurricane as it moves off the coast of Colima and Jalisco, Mexico. According to Mexico's National Weather Commission, Tropical Storm Stell increased its strength in the Pacific Ocean to intensify as a Category 1 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. It registered maximum sustained winds of 130 km per hour, gusts of 155, and displacement towards the west-northwest at 15 km per hour. Its wide circulation will cause heavy rains of 75 to 150 millimeters in place of Colima, Guerrero, Jalisco, Michoacán, Nayarit, and from 50 to 75 millimeters in areas of Guanajuato and Oaxaca. The Category 1 hurricane is expected to increase its strength during the next hours, and by early Monday morning, it could become a Category 2 hurricane. Flash floods triggered by seasonal torrential rains in Sudan's western Darfur region killed at least 7 people, including children, according to the UN and an aid group on Sunday. Heavy rains started late Friday in the Kas locality in South Darfur province, according to the General Coordination for Refugees and Displaced in Darfur. The group said the death included a pregnant woman and 2 boys aged 2 and 8. It said that at least 100 houses in camps for displaced people collapsed or were partly damaged. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, about 6,250 people have been affected by heavy rains and flooding in the provinces of South Kordofan, White Nile, and Kassala since the beginning of the rainy seasons in June. Last year, flooding and heavy rains killed more than 80 people and inundated tens of thousands of houses across the country. In China, at least 6 people died and 12 others were reported missing after floods hit southwestern Sichuan province. The information was broadcasted on Sunday by the country's central television. Heavy rains on Friday and Saturday caused flooding in the territory of the autonomous county of Beichuan, Xinjiang province. The authorities reported that 22,300 people in 13 villages were affected. In some places, power lines were damaged and vehicle traffic was obstructed. Rescue brigades continued the work. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The United States continues to plunder Syrian oil. This Saturday, a convoy of 40 vehicles carrying Syrian crude oil was reported to have moved through Iraq. The state news agency SANA reported that U.S. occupation forces transported tanker trucks loaded with stolen oil and vehicles with military equipment. The convoy, guarded by armored vehicles, left for Iraqi territory from the region of Al Jazeera in the northwest of Syria. The United States and its allies invaded Syria in 2014 under the pretext of fighting the terrorist group Daesh. From Damascus, they denounced that the illegal presence of the U.S. troops is a violation of Syria's sovereignty. Sri Lanka's protest movement reached its 100th day of continuous demonstration. After having forced President Gotabaya Rajapaksa from office, protesters are now turning their sights on his successor as the country's worst economic crisis continues.
Very beautiful country. So we want a president who can protect our country and the people, and who can do better So yeah, that kind of person is what we need right now.
Today is the 100th day of our struggle to remove the political curse of its last 75 years, to remove corruption, oppression, and all form of exploitation, to remove President Gotabaya Rayapatsa, former Finance Minister Basil Rayapatsa, former Prime Minister Mahinda Rayapatsa, and to send them out of politics. At the end of 100 days, we have succeeded in removing them from politics.
In Sri Lanka, a crowd held a vigil in honor of the victims of government repression against the protest. Dozens of people lit candles and torches in the middle of a peaceful camp in the country's capital, Colombo, to express their solidarity with the victims of state repression. The vigil takes place after Ranil Wickremesinghe was sworn in as interim president following Rajapaksa's resignation after fleeing the country. For more than 3 months, hundreds of protesters camped in tents in front of the presidential office in protest sparked by a severe economic crisis resulting in shortages of food, medicines, and fuel.
As we acknowledge and celebrate these victories,
Memorial Day of our whoever lost, whoever injuries, whoever died for this peaceful struggle in Sri Lanka.
We as a nation respect them. We appreciate their all contributions. We want to say that without their contribution, we can't reach this victory. Really, we were failed without their contribution. So as a nation, as a grateful people, we want to tribute them. We want to say thank you so much for all the commitment, for that sacrifice, and all the dedication in the name of Mother Sri Lanka.
Sudanese police fired tear gas as activists called for protests against military rule in the capital Khartoum. Security forces had erected roadblocks on bridges crossing the Nile River linking Khartoum to its suburbs to deter protesters who had vowed to take to the streets in large numbers following a period of relative calm over the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Adha, which ended early last week. The demonstrators opposed coup leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's October power grab and are also highlighting heavy fighting in Sudan's southern Blue Nile state, about 450 kilometers south of Khartoum. Sudan's latest coup derailed a transition to civilian rule, sparking new weekly protests and a crackdown by security forces that has left at least 114 killed, according to pro-democracy medics. In Somalia, a suicide car bomber exploded outside the North Dube Hotel in the city of Johar, north of Mogadishu, on Sunday. According to Somali SNTV news channels, there is an undetermined number of victims. According to the media, law enforcement is already on the scene. Meanwhile, the Halgan News media portal said that the attack on the hotel seriously wounded Asha Mohamed, head of Women's Affairs and Human Rights in the Hirshabelle Autonomous Government. The South African Communist Party celebrates its 15th Congress, which had as a priority to discuss the implementation of a more industrialized economic direction for the next 5 years. The political congress in Boksburg was held amid songs and dances that allude to the current of struggles of leaders such as Mandela, Desmond Tutu, Moses Kotane, Chris Hani, Jos Lobo, Hugo Chavez, and many others who confronted imperialism. During the event, a recognition was given to the South African leader Moses Kotane, who raised the importance of Africanizing Marxism. The Congress was attended by representatives of Cuba and Venezuela. For his part, the head of the Venezuelan delegation, Jesus Faria, presented a message of solidarity and handed over a small figure of the commander and former president of the South American country, Hugo Chavez, as a token of solidarity with the South African Communist Party. Cesar Pupi Pedroso, director of the band Pupi Los Que Son Son, passed away this Sunday in Havana. Pupi was a fundamental creator within the current Cuban music who paved the way towards the new style of timba. Internationally, his songs have been recorded in the voices of Celia Cruz with the song Azúcar, Adalberto Santiago, Alfredo de la Fe, and many others. With his band Los Que Son Son, Pupi set out to break standards and constantly renew himself. Among the defining elements of the orchestra are his refreshing lyrics and the cultivation of the traditional rhythms that come from son and salsa. Cesar Pupi Pedroso is an undisputed glory of Cuban culture that will be remembered by several generations of dancers and lovers of good popular music. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. We now leave you with one of the most iconic songs of Puppy and his band, El Caché de Puppy, for TeleSUR English. I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.